All right, we're going to get our last tweets out here. And then we're going to go in just a second. The most epic strategy podcast out there, because we don't give you guys any bullshit, just the real meat. Okay. Let's go. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's another Wednesday. The last Wednesday before Valentine's weekend. This is actually going to be the first Valentine's weekend that me and my wife have actually done something on Valentine's Day. We're not big Valentine's Day people. Only here for the pizza. Jay, you're going to be so disappointed today because we went to the, we'll show you in a second. We went to the New York style mom and pop shop down the street because I don't know how long it's going to be in business. It could literally go out of business at any time. I'd never, ever see anybody in that place. So I wanted to get it off the list while it was still an option. I got one more retweet to get out. If you are listening on Twitter, if you're listening on Twitch, you're welcome to stay there and hang out. The real party's over in YouTube. I am watching all three chats, so you'll still be fine if you want to chat in any of those. If you head over to youtube.com/@RobGardnerLive, hop over there. It would be super appreciated. If you're in the YouTube, please hit the like button. It helps us out a lot with the algorithm. If you're not subscribed yet, subscribe. I put out content every single day with tips and strategy and motivations around poker. Definitely check that out. We're going to unveil the pizza here in just a second. How is everybody doing? We're in the middle of an ice storm right now. I had to scrape ice off my car just to go get pizza. Red like ginger. I did spend money on a failing business and I felt bad. The guy's like, you only want one slice? I'm like, I'm going to leave you a really nice tip. So this is our pizza here. It comes in this really generic pizza box. You ready for this? How many of you have these types of paper plates in your house? This is the world's, you're going to recognize this right away, is the world's cheapest paper plate here. Look at this. The old flimsy paper plate that it's on. And it is a big slice. And you can fold it, but yeah, this thing, gotta go the opposite direction here. I'm not expecting much, if I'm being honest. But hey, we're here. Throw some Parmesan on it to mask the flavor. Some crushed red pepper. Today is going to be another hype discussion. I'm very, very excited. We're going to get into another one of my passionate topics, which is game selection. And I'm going to teach it in some ways that I haven't talked about before. I think you guys are going to get a lot out of it. Before we do that, we do have a hand history to run through from Dan J. So we're going to do that while I'm eating. It's brick oven. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's like I said, the way it works is they have all of these pre-made pies that are just cheese, and then they throw a bunch of toppings on it, and then they throw it in the oven for like 4 minutes, and then there's your slice. And they have all of these crazy weird flavors. I thought about doing something weird. Like they had they had some weird shit. You know, they had their kind of like normal weird shit, like, you know, chicken buffalo pizza that's like, you know, buffalo sauce and chicken and ranch. But then they had weird things like potato bacon avocado pizza. Like, what the hell? And it had like these really thin, like potato slices. I mean, this is your like 4 out of 10 gas station pizza. It would be better with some ranch, but I'm down 9 pounds in 2025. So we're going to fade the ranch. Casey's Pizza is probably going to be the very last episode of this podcast because I'm going to put it off as long as possible. That is the nastiest pizza there is. This is close. All right, let's do this hand history and then we'll get into today's topic. I got Italian friends, Jay. I got Italian friends. By the way, everybody, do me a favor because I've been running on about 4 hours sleep the last 2 nights, not for lack of trying to sleep. I've been sick. I've had this nasty like sinus infection, cold thing going on. I'm going to forget. Please remind me to hit record after this hand history so that I can capture a lot of the content that we're doing here and use it for socials and stuff. That would be great. We're going to do this hand history quick. I have not looked at this hand history at all. I kind of like going into hand histories blind so I can give you my honest reaction and also so that I'm kind of reacting with you. Like I don't have like the spoilers, like we're kind of going through it together. I think it's kind of better that way. The title of this hand history is Facing a Flop Check Raise and Barrels Too Sticky. And again, if you want a hand reviewed for free, head over to the Rec Poker Discord. Go to joinrec.poker. It's free to sign up for an account. You can join the Discord there. There is a channel there called Poker and Pizza. I'm going to go through every week and answer your strategy questions. You don't have to pay $200 an hour for a poker coach. You just come in, drop a question, I'll get it answered. My man, One Dog Geek, good to see you, buddy. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Hope you are doing well. So this is Facing a Flop Check Raise and Barrels Too Sticky. So let's look at it. We are 1,500 3K big blind. So we're 34 big blinds effective. We min open from the button. We get called by both blinds. And we flop top pair with a backdoor flush draw. Checks to us. What do we want to do? This is a $21 PKO. Good to know. So we're covering the small blind. We're not covering the big blind. So my baseline here is definitely going to be a bet. Now, we have to be a little careful here. These paired boards that are 8 or below kind of hit that big blind's range. But we have a strong hand. So in a spot like this, with this drive aboard, I'm probably going to be c-betting range. But I would be going very, very small with my bluffs and then upsizing from there with my value. Unless I was playing really, really good players that I felt were like super paying attention. Because we have a spade in our hand, we've got a strong pair. Our hand is somewhat variable. I'm fine with 33% pot or 66% pot. I'm going to lean 33 because it's multi-way, and generally multi-way we can just get away with these small bets. And Dan goes 33%. What a legend. And we get check raise from the small blind. Now, here's the thing. There's a couple factors here. One, this is a small blind range. Now, I've talked about this before. Those of you who've been around for a long time, small blind frustrates me more than any other position in poker because there's a very specific way that people are supposed to play the small blind, but we have no idea if this particular opponent has any type of awareness of that. Like of all the positions in poker, small blind is the one that you get the most diversity in play style. So, for example, if you were to go to the solvers and pull up all the chart, you'd be like, well, he doesn't have any 4X in his range, so he's capped here. We don't know. In a real freaking world, we have no idea if this guy has a 4 or not. He shouldn't. He shouldn't have a 4. He shouldn't have pocket jacks. He shouldn't have queens through aces. Theoretically, his range should be insanely capped. But in reality, we don't know. In addition to that, he's check raising into 2 people, right? He's not just check raising into us. He's check raising into the big blind who is yet to act. Again, pair of 4s on the board does hit the big blind's range. And he's check raising into us. So how do we break this down practically? Well, I'm looking for how likely my opponent is to have bluffs, because if he has any value here at all, we're beat. Like, what value do we realistically beat here? Right? Let's pretend we want to be really ambitious and be like, could be check raising here with Jack 10. We're still going to chop with Jack 10 a decent percentage of the time. If there's an ace, a king comes on the turn of the river, we're going to chop. If another 4 comes, we're going to chop. If another Jack comes, we're going to chop. So I think we have to look at this as a situation where we literally have, it looks like a strong hand on our part. And we do have the ability to call multiple streets with the spade because we can run backdoor spades. But we basically just have a bluff catcher. Our hand here might as well be pocket 5s. Might as well be pocket deuces, right? So the question is, how many bluffs does he have? Well, when we start thinking about the kind of bluffs he can have, this is again where you can get into like the theory or the practical shit. Because theoretically, you could throw some baby pocket pairs into his bluffs, right? Paired boards are great boards to take hands like pocket 2s, pocket 3s, check raise them as bluffs because they're vulnerable hands that unblock all of the types of cards we can have that would be bet folding, like ace 10, ace king, ace queen, ace 9 suited. And they need that protection. I don't think it's super likely you're going to run into a player here that's going to check raise a baby pocket pair into a multi-way pot from the small blind. So then what are the other bluffs? Well, they're basically spade draws, right? Now, passive players generally don't check raise spade draws. They just call them. In addition to that, we have a spade in our hand. So it's less likely that he has a spade draw. And then in addition to that, our opponent is in the small blind. So they're supposed to have a tight, condensed, capped calling range, of which all of the flush draws, Queen of Spades is a really, really important card, right? Excuse me. This post-nasal drip thing is killing me. So all of that to say, there's a percentage of the time he could be bluffing, but it's unlikely. There's a percentage of the time that his bluffs would include the card that's in our hand. And then there's just a percentage of the time that he just doesn't have any bluffs here. So I'm a huge fan of folding here. You're not going to find a solver or a GTO bot on the planet that's going to tell you to fold here. Because we're way up in our range and we have a really strong hand and we have backdoor equity. But you're basically calling here and hoping that this player is a spaz, or you're in a really low frequency situation where they're bluffing, and you're just not going to find that. We do make the call. As played, the spades come in, and our opponent now leads for half pot. And this is the problem, right? When the majority of their bluffs contain, like, technically the Queen of Spades is both a blocker to the draw, but also a backdoor equity card, right? But the problem with that is when that card comes in, it shifts from being like, this hand shifts from like, well, we have a flush draw to really, we have a blocker to the flush draw. And so now we're in a spot where, like, damn, this sucks. Because if he has the flush, we're probably not even drawing to a flush that's any good. And if we're blocking the flush and making it less likely as flushes, then we're taking a lot of what his bluff range was on the flop out. And now his bluff range really, really is like small pocket pairs. I guess you could, like, if you had some like freaking like ape styles in here, you could put like ace 5 of diamonds, ace deuce of diamonds in, but those hands are going to go massive on this turn. They're not going to go half pot. So again, like, theoretically, if we put this into a solver today, it'd be like, yeah, you have to call here. Practically speaking, this is the same as flop for me. Like, I just cannot, in a real world versus a random player, look at this spot and go, here's all these hands he can have that we're beating. There's like, it's just such a tiny percentage of his range. And the river is a 7, and he piles. And once you come this far, you can't fold, right? Because you have the guy covered for the bounty. If you were good pre-flop, flop, and turn, you're definitely good on this river. So you just have to go with it. And yeah, he's got the nut flush. So his line makes sense. His hand calling pre-flop is reasonable. It's going to mix. It's going to do some 3-betting. It's going to do some flatting. Those frequencies will shift depending on what stage in the tournament we are. We're 4-handed here, so I'm guessing this is FT. Unless this was like a 6-max tournament. So there'd be some ICM implications to flat. I don't love his check raise on the flop. I don't know. I guess it's okay. The nice thing about his check raise on the flop, I guess, if he's going to check raise fold to a pile, assuming that a pile means that he's like way behind or potentially has dirty outs. But I think in a vacuum, I'd prefer calling on the flop with the flush draw. These flush draws in like paired board spots are kind of dicey. It is a button opening range, so it is really uncondensed and whatnot. But like, he's basically raising to push black tie luck out of the pot and maybe get some like weak pocket pairs to fold. So yeah. And it makes sense, like once he gets to the turn, like he downsizes to like a half pot size bet. We're gonna take like 1 or 2 more bites of this mediocre pizza and call it a day. Oh. So yeah, I think this is something that's super, super important. Yeah, I agree, Dan. Like, again, this is the danger, and I'm not saying that you've done this, but this is the danger with 1, sites like GTO Wizard, and 2, people that teach and coach poker who have been influenced by sites like GTO Wizard. Is they teach you all these theory principles that make sense logistically, but they're based on a world where people play appropriately. And once we kind of take a step back from that and we just think about the practical situation, we can kind of look at it and go, okay, this isn't realistic. This isn't realistic. And what I like to think about it of, you know, we try to think about our opponents in terms of a hand, or not in terms of a hand, but a range. And I like to think about opponents as not an opponent, but a range of opponents, right? So in a situation where, we're going to talk about this a little bit later today with the game selection, but like if you're playing on a certain particular site during a particular player pool, right? There's a range of opponents that you face in that player pool. And you can't just go, well, because there's a couple aggressive players on the site that this guy's obviously being aggressive, right? There's some aggressive players, there's some passive players. So if you look at a spot like this and you're like, well, an aggressive player would have some bluffs here on the flop. You know, an aggressive player would bluff, you know, small pocket pairs. An aggressive player would bluff flush draws. An aggressive player would bluff backdoor flush draws. That's cool. So now you know that a percentage of the player pool is going to bluff here with those hands, but that's not the entire player pool, right? So you have to kind of dial it down a little bit. And I just think it's going to be hard to find a player pool where you're going to have a high enough percentage of players that are check raising properly for this to be a call and flop. And if it is, you're probably playing in the wrong game, which we'll talk about later today. Now, if you have specific information on this opponent, right? They're hyper aggressive. They will check raise just for the sake of check raising. They don't need to have a hand that makes sense. That changes the whole dynamic. But yeah, I think it sucks, but I think we just fold flop here. And this is like, I can't stress this enough. You want to be a final table wizard at like low to mid stakes. master these folds. Make the kind of folds at a final table that if you posted them on Twitter, people would come out of their seat and rip you a new one. I make so much money making folds that everybody would disrespect because they're so locked into this world where this is the way we have to play. There was a spot a week and a half ago in Minneapolis. Final table, 9 left. I'm 9 out of 9. I have 10 big blinds. I'm in the button. Under the gun opens to 3x off of like 26. And under the gun 1 flats off of like 14. And it gets to me and I have 10s on the button. Nobody's folding there. Easiest shove on the planet, right? I could not fold my cards fast enough because under the gun had not 3x the entire tournament. I'd played with them both on the final table and not final table. And under the gun +1 was one of the tightest players at the table. So I folded and it paid off. I got some pay jumps because of it. And by the way, I was right. One of them had queens. So this is where in this practical world, you make a lot of freaking money when you can back out of all the theory and bullshit that's out there and just go, all right, let's talk about this world we're in right now. Can I come up with enough realistic bluffs versus population to go, yeah, this is a call? And if you can't, it doesn't matter how good your hand is. Just right into the muck. Right into the muck. All right. We're going to get into it. The goal, I'm hoping that I can get through this without losing my voice because I have another podcast tonight. And if you enjoy these Rob gets pumped and passionate and fired up conversations, you want to show up tonight. WatchChaseTheDream.com, 7:30 Eastern. If you can't make it, I know there's a lot of other streamers doing things on Wednesday nights. It's on the YouTube channel. You can watch it on the playback. You can also check it out. Spotify, Apple. It's in all the major podcast listings because I have got a rant for tonight. It's going to be a good one. All right. I want to talk about game selection. Okay. Because this is a skill that is vastly underrated. It's very poorly taught. And for those of you who have aspirations similar to what we talked about last week about making money in 2025 playing poker, this topic is life-changing and critical, mission critical to everything you're going to do. So I want to drill this into all of your heads. And I really want you to shift how you approach everything about poker. So let's just talk about the premise for game selection, okay? Right now, based on the best analytics I could access, 100 million people play poker as a serious hobby. 100 million. Okay? That's a lot of freaking good people. And the game's growing. These numbers are going to continue to go up. The gambling industry is growing. Poker tours are growing. Online poker is growing, right? We have all of these new sites coming up. Like this number is going to increase. And that's important because for you to enjoy this game, whether the enjoyment for the game for you is making a shit ton of money, or the enjoyment in making the game for you is you just like competing. You like feeling like you have a competitive edge. You like playing and winning and you know, feel like you're one of the better players at the table or in the tournament or whatever. Then your only goal is to find the games where you're in the top 30, 40% of everybody in the room. And when there's 100 million people doing something, there's a lot of different places you can go that are in that spectrum, right? Like, it wouldn't be, if you love chess, it wouldn't be fun to play a top 100 player unless there was some nostalgia around I got to play a top 100 player, right? Because you're going to get your ass kicked and it's not going to be close, right? So you want to be playing in games that are like competitive to where you're at or even better. And if you're coming at it from the profit standpoint, if you were playing chess for profit, you'd want to play the worst player in the world. But the funny thing is in poker, we get so fixated on what we can win that we don't really think about what gives us the best chance to win. And think about this, right? 100 million people in the game. You can only sit with 8 people at a time. 8 people. So how good those 100 million players are is largely irrelevant compared to how good are the 8 people sitting around the table with you. And what ends up happening is game selection ends up being the last step in the process. Where essentially, when we think about, oh, I've got a Friday night free, I want to go play poker. And, we start thinking about all of the different factors in deciding what we want to play. And we'll look at our bankroll, we'll look at where our friends are going, we'll look at what kind of money we can make, we'll look at like all of these things. We'll look at the fun factor, which to be fair is a part of it, right? I have more fun playing this tournament, playing this site, playing for this prize. But the game selection part of it is like the last thing we kind of throw in at the end. When in reality, it should be the very first thing we think about. Okay? And here's why. When you know your target, like when you're looking at game selection and you find a game that you're going to target, right? You know what to study. You know who to study. You know how to study. And most importantly, you know if to study. And think about this, right? Studying poker. Now, there's people out there, the weird people, okay? We're going to talk about the weird people. The weird people who are like obsessed with studying poker. They get up at like 4:30 in the frickin' morning and they drink their like organic, earthy, herbal like coffee with their like vegan cream, and they have their Birkenstocks on, and they're like sitting in their chair wiggling at 4:30 in the morning because they're like, I can't wait to pull up GTO Wizard. And they're like, those people are freaks. God bless them. Most of us do not get excited about studying poker. We want to go play the damn game. We don't want to get stuck in solvers and ranges and all this crap. It's not fun. It's work, right? Which is why the game's so damn soft. Because if it was fun to study, this game would be the hardest game in the world to beat. So there's some freaks out there like to study. Most of us don't. And I know I talk to people all the time. They're trying to get over this hump of like, how much do I study? How do I be motivated to study? How do I work on my game harder? Well, if you don't like studying, find a game where you're better than everybody in it, and then you don't have to study anymore. Like, it could be that simple. And I believe those games are out there, and I believe those games are going to grow in size and opportunity. Like some of you in the live realm, like I know Texas, right? I've gotten to play a lot of poker down in Texas, and it's so tempting to go to TCH, Lodge, like all of these big rooms that have multiple rooms and multiple tables. But do you know how many like mom and pop card rooms there are that have opened up in random places where there's like 1 or 2 tables going at any one time? And nobody wants to go to those places. Why? Because nobody wants to go to those places. Well, guess who doesn't want to go to those places? The good players. The good players want to go where there's a lot of players. So guess who's not at those places? The good players, right? Imagine walking into one of those rooms and going from a mediocre break-even 1-2 cash game player to the best player in the card room. Like, we're not talking a hypothetical here. This is a real thing that's out there. And yet, I still see people piling into the biggest rooms in Texas, playing on tables where there's 20 grand on the table and their bankroll is less than the entire amount of money on the table, getting frustrated about how aggressive those games play and how much variance there is, when literally 5 miles away, there's probably a game that they could beat in their sleep if they were willing to adjust. So it's super important. Like, when you figure out what you want to target, when you figure out the games you're targeting, it gives context to everything you're going to do. You now know what you need to work on in your game. You now know the player types you really need to focus on. Instead of just studying poker to study poker, you have a targeted strategy for how you study the game. You get into a game and nobody's check raising, you don't freaking need to study defendant check raises. You get into a game and you got a guy at the table who will 3-bet any 2 cards, and he's 3-betting 4-7 offsuit and then jamming any flop. That sounds pretty awesome. Now you can go study how to play a player that 3-bets 4-7 offsuit and jams any flop. You wouldn't study that in any other realm on the planet. There's no reason to study it. It's a waste of time to study it because it's not a thing that you're going to run into. But if in a particular game you're constantly running into it, it's now the most important thing you can learn. I'm not against solvers and GTO Wizard. It's just used horribly wrong. Everybody wants to learn how to play poker in a perfect world when we live in a world where there's nothing perfect. Like, you want to get into that stuff. If you have a passion for that stuff, if you like sites like that, fine. Learn node locking and start node locking for the types of players you're running to on a regular basis. It will change your freaking life. I couldn't believe I came back from Tunica 2 years ago. And I was running into these players who would defend the big blind with range. They would defend the big blind with ace king. They would defend the big blind with aces. And then they would lead with range. And it was a very weird thing, kind of in a weird old man coffee thing. And I was like, I had some good ideas on how to play it. But I node locked it and ran it. And I was blown away by how much we were actually supposed to raise those opponents, because they were leading at such a high frequency that even though they were uncapped, even though they could have their best hands, they had so many weak hands that we could literally raise with any 2 cards and they would overfold. That's not a takeaway I would have intuitively had. And that was awesome to learn. So that realm exists. You can go into it if you have a passion for it. But situational studying is so much more efficient than the shotgun approach of just randomly shooting at things and trying to just overall elevate your game. So having an intentionality about what games you play can be life-changing, not just to your results, but your entire growth process. Now, I guarantee you somebody in this chat right now is thinking this exact thing. They're thinking, that's all good, Rob, but I just play poker for fun. I don't care. Like, this doesn't really apply to me because, I'm just there to have a good time. I don't really care about it. Bullshit. You know what's fun in poker? Winning. I have never met, and maybe they're out there. Again, maybe there's a few freaks in poker. I've never met anybody who just plays the game for fun, who sits in a game and gets their teeth kicked in all day, gets sucked out on left and right, doesn't win a single hand, and walks out of the card room and is like, well, I ran horrible and I lost a ton, but goddamn, that was so much fun. Nobody does that. All of the players, all of you out there that are like, I just play for fun. I don't care about that. You have more fun when you win. Be honest. Be honest. You have more fun when you win than when you lose. Yeah, you might not be focused on profit and building a bankroll and trying to make lots of money, and you might not care if you lose money at the game, but you have more fun when you're winning than you're losing. So even if you're in that realm, playing in games that give you the opportunity to win more helps a ton. So that's why this is so important. That's why game selection is so critically important. It's going to elevate your fun factor. It's going to elevate your profit level if you care about that. And it's going to make you way more efficient as you try to grow at this game. And everybody should try to grow at this game because I believe the game is more fun the more you learn about it. So let's talk about how we're going to do game selection. Step one, you have to continually adapt and adjust to the market. Understand that things are constantly changing. All right? Let me go down the list of everything that's changing on a regular basis. Okay? New sites and venues, right? There are new poker sites opening up. There are new card rooms opening up. There are opportunities to go to new places all the time. New casinos. Player pools are changing, right? As these new sites open up, as venues open up, as casinos open up, people go in different directions. There's new poker tours now, right? So playing the circuit today isn't like playing the circuit 3 years ago because now there's a Poker Atlas tour and a Thunderbolt tour and a Run Good series and all of these different tours. And the player pools are getting fractured. So player pools are changing. Tournament structures change all the time. People add levels. People remove levels. People change the amount of starting ships. Online sites are changing tournament structures on a regular basis. Schedules. When tournaments are available. ACR's got a brand new schedule coming out. I think it's like February 21st. Supposedly it's going to have shorter registration times. Could be good. I don't know. Tournament formats, right? People are coming up with new tournament formats all the time. They're coming up with different gimmicks, different ways of doing bounties. There's a, I don't know if they're doing it at the Lodge anymore, but the tournament in San Antonio used to do small blind ante instead of big blind ante. So the ante was half the size of the big blind. These things have an impact. Promotions, right? There's promotions, especially in live card rooms. You have cash games have all kinds of different promotions, high hand promotions and random drawings and promotions where if you play a certain amount of hours, you get a discount on rake or you get a bonus at the end of the month. These things change things. Overlay, big one. Who likes paying rake? I don't. You can get a tournament with overlay. It's money in your pocket. Rake changes on a regular basis. People, live card rooms have discounts on rake from time to time. Certain casinos, especially in the live tournament realm, will increase the rake. They'll never tell you about it. You have to pay attention to these things. But more importantly, in all of these things that change is your situation. Your situation changes. When you can play will change. What your bankroll is will change. Your confidence will change. Your emotional strength will change. And your poker style will change. And as all these things change, the landscape for what and where and how why you should play a particular game can have the potential of shifting. And we're very guilty, all of us, myself included, of putting ourselves in a box. We assess all these things. And we think about them and we go, all right, I'm going to play at this place at this time, and I'm going to play these games. And then a year later, we're playing all the same games, and we haven't looked at anything that's going on. And we haven't factored any of this in to our decision making. And what's crazy about it to me is, like, I hear a lot of complaining in poker. It's just second nature. Like, you guys know. Tilt and frustration, all these different things. And what's funny is people will complain about things that are completely in their control. I'm tired of these games where people are just shoving 200 big blinds pre-flop. Why the hell are you playing in a game where people shove 200 big blinds pre-flop then? There are plenty of games out there where people don't shove 200 big blinds pre-flop. So if you hate playing in games where people shove 200 big blinds pre-flop, find a different game. Oh, I hate 5 hours of late reg. Stop playing tournaments with 5 hours of late reg. There are tournaments out there that don't have 5 hours of late reg. I hate playing tournaments that go 14 hours. Play a tournament that goes 6 hours. I hate dealing with limpers. Don't play cash games with limpers. Like all of these things are in your control. It's not like we live in a world where there's only one poker game that everybody plays in and everybody plays the same way. And you can find games that cater to your strengths. Like if you love GTO, then learn GTO and play on a site where GTO matters. Play in a game that's very like European. But if you hate GTO, then don't play on a site with a bunch of Europeans that do these sorts of things, right? So you have to cater your games to your style and how you play. Now, this is about to blow your mind and piss you off. What if I was to tell you right now that there is a site today, a poker site, where every single day there are numerous tournaments and satellites that overlay on a consistent basis? What if I was to tell you today that there's a poker site, a different poker site than the one I just mentioned, that has a specific format on their site where you can max late reg the tournament, use your time bank, not play a single hand, and make the money the vast majority of the time? What if I told you that there's a different poker site from those two poker sites that has a format where the player pool will shove any two cards on the first hand and go all in every single hand? Now, hearing that, I'm sure all of you are like, oh my God, I can't wait for him to tell us like what these sites are. And here's the kicker. I'm not going to tell you. And it's not because I don't want you to know, and it's not because I'm an asshole, but it's because I want you all to get this into your head and start thinking about this. These opportunities are out there, and you need to learn to start looking for them. They're not hard to find. You just have to put the time and energy into it. You got to shift your thinking from being a poker player to being a poker scout. I knew someone that Hubie's like, why not? Why are you going to tell us? Listen, this is the old adage, right? Give a person a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a person to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. If I give you the answers to these questions, you're going to go take advantage of it, get excited about it. You're going to forget about it. And you're going to stop looking. Because these opportunities are not going to be the last opportunities in poker. There's going to be more opportunities like these in the coming weeks, months, and years. And I want all of you, I genuinely want all of you to learn this skill and hone it and do it consistently. And if I give you the answer, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. So yeah, I'm a total asshole, but I have your best interests in mind. But I'm not being facetious about that. Not in the least. Those are all things that exist right now today, and you should go start looking for them. And you should go start looking for other things like them that I might not have found. There may be more things out there that I'm not aware of that you might find. And when you find them, send me a DM. Be like, Rob, I just found this amazing thing. It's like, oh, it's so sick. But I'm not going to tell you about it because you didn't tell us. And I'm just going to clap and applaud you and say, great job. I'm so proud of you. And that's it. And that'll motivate me to go do the healthy thing, which is to go do the exploring. So these things are changing. And it is so valuable to you to take the time and energy to find them, make this a part of your thought process, and make this a part of game selection. You should be doing this on a regular basis, maybe like once a month or at least once every quarter. You should be kind of taking an assessment of what's out there And look, that doesn't mean you have to play poker on every site or go to every video. Make connections, network, right? Find people you know who play on every online site. In fact, build a group. Like, one of the things I want to talk about tonight with Chase the Dream is like, my dream for that project is that people see what we're doing with that group and they go make their own groups to chase their dreams with. Go make a group of poker friends and have some people on different sites and work together. Yo, what are you finding out on this site? And what are you seeing on this site? And coordinate and collaborate. Like, that's part of this is a social game. People say poker's not a team sport. Why? Obviously, we're not playing a team sport in that, like, we're sitting in front of the computer playing and helping each other on hands. But off the felt, why can't this be a team sport? Why can't we help each other grow? Right? Build a group of people. Build a network. Build a friend circle and work together on this. Stay in the know. It's super important. Things are changing. All right. Number 2. Data. What is going on with my caps lock? Good Lord, I can't type. Okay. We'll just leave it data. I'm done. Data, this point drives me up the damn wall. I try to be a patient person. I try to be a compassionate person. I privately get frustrated with my friends because inevitably questions come up all the time when I'm talking to friends about decisions they're trying to make around poker. You know, should I move up in stakes? Should I move from this state to this state? Should I quit my job? Should I go back into a job? And I always come back to the same thing. What data do you have? And the vast majority of the time, the answer is I don't have data, or I don't know the data. And I'm like, why not? How can you possibly make an educated decision about anything if you don't have the data? Right? And this is something, again, that the casual recreational players out there are going to go, I don't need to know the data. I don't need to know the data. Yes, you do. There was a tweet that recently that Poker.org put out asking this question: is online poker safe? And I'm a Poker.org fan. I like what they do. I think they're, I'm just going to be honest, a much better version of Poker News. But the question is a facetious one. And kind of a silly one, because it implies that, like, there's a binary question here, like, online poker is safe, yes. Online poker is safe, no. And if there's cheating, then it's not safe. And if there's not cheating, then it's safe. You're not getting away from cheating. You're not. In fact, you could quit poker tomorrow, never play poker again, and you're not going to get away from cheating. There's cheating in the stock market. There is cheating in your workplace. There is cheating in every anywhere there is an opportunity to get an edge, people cheat. You can't get away from it. And if you have this mentality of, like, I'm going to avoid cheating, good luck. Find a deserted island. That's the only way you're going to get away from cheating. And that may sound kind of like obnoxious because, well, then what are we supposed to do? We're just supposed to let ourselves get cheated? You're just saying that cheating doesn't matter? No, I'm not. Cheating does matter. But what matters about cheating is not that it's happening. Because most of us are not in a position to do anything about it, right? Like, if you're in a position where you have a position of authority and you can do something about cheating, it doesn't pertain to this conversation. You as an individual can't do anything about cheating in online poker and live poker. Except know what the data says. Because at the end of the day, if you have a 30% ROI in tournaments, that's what cheating baked in. It's baked into your win rate. Do you really care? Like, yeah, obviously, if you could just wave a magic wand and make cheating go away and have a 50% ROI, that'd be fantastic. But you have a 30% ROI. You're making money. So the way you combat cheating is knowing your win rates. If you have a 30% ROI on a site and all of a sudden over a large sample size, it dips down to 10, well, now you have a problem. Because either the site's gotten way tougher, which you're going to be able to eyeball test, or maybe there's more cheating going on. And that is how you combat cheating. You don't combat cheating by avoiding it. There's no place you go where it's magically disappearing. You combat it by having the data to make good game selection decisions. And by the way, this is relevant not just to winning players, but losing players. If you're out there and you're a losing player, whether either like you're a losing player striving to be a winning player, or you're a losing player that has like a budget and you're willing to lose a certain amount of dollars a month, you can still lose less money, right? You can still play in games where your ROI is negative 10% instead of negative 30%. So having this data is really important. And this data breaks down into two categories, okay? Quantitative data. Why can I not type today? It's because I'm not looking while I'm doing it. So this is quantitative data is like numbers, number crunching, right? Online, this is HUD stats, having a HUD. SharkScope, big one. Now, for you penny pinchers out there, you get 5 searches a day for free. So you can have a free SharkScope account and search yourself once a month and track the change in stats and have a monthly PNR. Super easy. Doesn't cost you a penny. Takes you 5 minutes a month. But it's valuable. You do a search for every site you play on, you have the data, and now you have some sort of context for where you're at, what your win rate is, how it's going. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? And if you play on multiple sites, you have a nice apples to apples comparison, right? If you play different formats, if you play different speeds of tournaments, normals, turbos. This is where having a SharkScope subscription is kind of beneficial, because you can start to go into the more minute details. You know, what's my ROI in turbos? What's my ROI in normal tournaments? Live, or like online cash, for example, it's going to be a session tracker. And this stuff is hard to do. I get it. Like, especially if you're someone struggling to get profitable in poker, or you're someone who, gets anxiety over losing. Like, losing just makes you feel sick to your stomach. I struggled with that for a long time, where like, I'd lose $100 playing poker, and it would feel like I lit $100 bill on fire and watched it burn slowly. It can be hard to do this, but you have to think of it as the money you're saving by having this information, not the money you're losing by actually watching and tracking it lose. Because you're going to lose it either way, but you can lose less of it if you're informed. And then the other thing is the qualitative data. And this is the subjective non-number data, right? Do you see opportunities to exploit your opponents? And I'm talking in the games you're playing. Do you see people at the table who are making big mistakes that you can take advantage of? This is a question we don't ask ourselves honest enough. I mean, we all know the quote, right? If you don't spot the fish within the first 30 minutes, then you're probably the fish. And we all quote it and have a half-hearted chuckle. But how many games do we sit in and actually literally ask ourselves that question? Not facetiously, not funnily, not I know the quote. How many times do we sit at the table and go, who are my targets here that I know I can make money off of? And then have the accountability to go, oh shit, I don't really see any marks at this table. I need to get up. Again, these are things we don't necessarily want to think about, because our instant gratification side of us just wants to jump in and play and not think about these things. But again, you want to have more fun, put yourself in a game where you could win more often. Like it's worth the mental effort to ask ourselves these questions. How many uncomfortable situations are we being put in? This is an important one. Now, we can't always avoid uncomfortable situations in poker. And if we want to grow our games, we need to allow ourselves to be put into uncomfortable situations so we can be motivated to study those situations and get better. But all that being said, if we're constantly being put in uncomfortable situations in a certain game and we're not seeing ourselves get over the hump with that in a reasonable amount of time, it's time to switch games. If you're playing in games, again, where you're just getting 3-bet too much and you hate 3-bet pots, you need to go find some more passive games where you're not getting 3-bet at a high frequency, or go take the time it takes to study and learn those spots so you're not uncomfortable anymore. Both of those options are infinitely better than, oh, I'm so sick of these games where people are just 3-betting. Oh, this guy, he just 3-bets all the damn time. I wish he would just stop. He's not the problem, you are. It's tough to hear, but it's reality. I told you, I'm bringing it straight. This podcast is super honest. You're putting yourself in that situation. You have the opportunity to learn and overcome that situation or leave that situation. But staying and complaining about it and not getting better at it is not the option. It's not the one that makes your life better. And then most importantly, does this game... Oh, you guys can't even see. Oh. There we go. Does this game cater to your strengths? And this is one that I've of all the things you hear today, this is the one takeaway today. Does these games cater to your strengths? Get this in your head. Do you know what your strengths are? Some of you, your strengths are short stack play. You're really good at short stacked play. We talked about this last week. I was talking about how you find profit in 2025. And I said, the shortcut for not having to study and learn all the things we went through is to playing games where you're only short stacked, because then you only have to study short stacked spots. So if you're really, really good at short stacked play and you're not good at medium or deep stack play, stop registering tournaments with 300 big blinds to start. Why? What are you doing? Stop. Please. Learn late reg, max late reg. Build a bankroll management system that allows you to reg the last 2 minutes of every tournament. And embrace that ride and enjoy it. Think about how fun it is to max late reg a tournament and be at the final table 40 minutes later. I've literally max late reg tournaments and won them in 2 hours. That is a rush. Sure as hell beats playing a tournament for 13 hours and busting 10th. Holy hell, that sucks. Find the games that cater to your strengths. And again, you have the power to change your strengths. So if you don't like where your strengths are at, you have the power to go study and work on those things. And when we talk about motivation for studying, this is kind of where it goes. Like, you can look at it like, well, I really wish I was better at 3-bet pots. Cool. Now you have a motivation to go out and study those things and go into it. It drives me bonkers. The people who, the way they approach studying the game is, I'm just going to get on GTO Wizard and do the test for 3 hours a day. What the hell is that teaching you? How is that making you any better? You don't want to just throw yourself out there and study. Like, have a targeted purpose for what you're trying to accomplish. Because when you have a targeted purpose for your studying, when you have a specific goal in mind, you actually get to implement it and see results. What the hell results do you get from just studying a test? You know, what do I do here? Call, raise, fold, and doing that for 2 hours a day. Now, the people that sell those products want you to believe that those things are going to make you a better player and it's going to change your wins and you're going to make more. Come on. We just saw from the very first hand history today, that stuff's not going to help you in a real world. Now, It is valuable information if it's used correctly. I'll tell you, GTO has changed my life, but it wasn't playing GTO that changed my life. It was understanding what GTO was trying to do and then being able to apply that in a practical situation that changed my life. So you have to figure out what your strengths are, find games that cater to those strengths. And if you can't find games that cater to those strengths, change your strengths. But all of this comes back to the data. And this is the part that everybody wants to ignore and get away from. But then they get frustrated with the consequences of that, which is not getting the results they want, not winning enough, not having enough money in their bankroll, and overall having a less enjoyable experience. When all of this, I'm being honest, is in your control. Am I making sense out there? Y'all are quiet. I think everybody left when I decided not to tell you guys where the overlay was. The whole stream just came crashing down. Everybody's like, we're done. We're out of here. All right. This is the last part of game selection. And this is also really important. Find your economic engine. Now, I've taught this idea of economic engine before, but we're going to talk about it a little bit differently today than I've talked about it in the past. So if this sounds familiar to you, don't tune out because we're going to talk about this from a little bit of a different approach. Ginger says, makes great sense. Thank you. I love feedback. I appreciate it. I like knowing that I'm not putting you guys to sleep. The idea of an economic engine, and the way I've taught it before, is this idea that you have something going in poker that is generating a steady revenue. And that revenue is your foundation for everything you're going to do. Because if you have somewhere in poker that you can generate revenue, then from there on, anything's possible, right? You can take shots. And if your shots fail, you can go back to your economic engine. You can go into a different type of game. You can go from tournaments to cash. You can go from tournaments to sit and goes. You can go from low stakes to mid stakes. And if that fails, you have a fallback to your economic engine. And so the idea was initially that if you find the one thing that you can consistently make money in, then it gives you the opportunity to branch out and try all kinds of different things and grow your foundation. But you can't do anything until you have that engine. And it's a good concept in and of itself, but I want to evolve it and expand on it today when we talk about game selection. And to do that, we have to separate being a pro and being full-time. And this is so freaking important because everybody wants to talk about being a full-time pro like those things are hand in hand. Like if you want to be a poker pro, then you have to play full-time and all of your income has to come from poker. And if you want to play full-time, then you have to be a professional doing it. Neither of those things are true. I'm going to say that again. Neither of those things are true. You could get financially independent, retire from your job, play poker full-time as a fully recreational poker player. You also could not quit your job, keep your job intentionally, indefinitely, and have a professional poker career while maintaining a full-time job. We have to make this distinction because when you get in this box of there's full-time pro and there's recreational, it shoots you off in all these different paths, making all of these crazy decisions. And you start to make bad decisions because you're putting yourself into this box. And I bring this up because one of the most common questions I get asked is, when should I consider going full-time pro? A lot of people have this ambition of being a full-time pro, and they're like, well, when do I make the jump? When do I make the leap? And they're asking the wrong question, right? Because in their mind, their passion is they want to play poker full time. And sometimes both, their passion is they want to play poker with everything they've got. Like, it's their passion. And there's this weird qualifier where it's like, in order to do either of those things, you have to meld them together into one. Like, well, I'd love to play poker full time, but that means I guess I got to take it seriously. Or, well, I'd love to take my career seriously, but that means I guess I have to quit my job. And that's just not true. And so this is where the economic engine is evolving for me. And the question of when do I go pro is evolving. If you're in chat right now, if you're in this stream, if you're listening on YouTube, you're watching this recording afterwards, and you're asking yourself the question, should I go pro? Or when should I go pro? The answer is right now. Right now. You start your professional poker career the second this stream ends, after you hit like and subscribe. Because all you need to do to start a professional poker career is make the decision and commitment in your head that this is something you're passionate about and you want to give it 110%. That's it. Don't friggin' let anybody in this industry tell you that you have to have a certain win rate, that you have to be at a certain competitive level, that you have to have won a certain amount of bracelets or rings, that your Hendon mob has to be a certain size, that you have to prove that you've won it. F all of that. You decide what your passion is, and you go after it with everything you have, and everybody else be damned. But in order to do that, we have to separate these things, okay? Because the question of quitting a job and going into full-time poker is very, very different from having a poker career. I have friends who maintain successful careers in their main jobs and still go out and absolutely crush live and online poker. They win trophies. They win rings. They win bracelets. And they manage IRAs. They run schools. They run businesses. They manage banks. This is 2025. You can have multiple careers at the same time. 100%. Please do not box yourself into saying, well, I've always wanted a poker career, but I got a family and I got a job. You can have it all. I know it looks easy coming from me because it's like, well, Rob, you don't have a full-time job. And listen, let me tell you what I'm involved with right now. Okay? Aside from having a poker career, I've launched this huge content project, which is like a massive undertaking. I'm building daily content on 3 different platforms. I'm launching a poker course in 2025. I am managing marketing for an entirely separate poker company over at Rec Poker. I'm managing 3 different podcasts right now. I'm working on a game development project I haven't told any of you about because it's been a lifelong dream of mine to create a game and sell it on Steam. I am involved in a daily fantasy sports project completely detached for this, where I'm responsible for building out projections and putting rosters together and looking at sports betting props. I have like 10 projects I'm in. And I'm still finding time and energy to be successful in poker. You can do it. You really, really, really can. We're so fortunate we live in an age in 2025 where we have all of these different tools at our disposal. And I know people are scared of AI and people are scared of being spied on and data and all of this stuff. I get it. Change is scary. When the internet first came out, everybody was terrified of it. My dad was working at the University of the Illinois at the time. He was associate director for a major organization at the U of I that managed a lot of their technology and was at the cutting edge. In fact, the University of Illinois was one of the first universities to really build architecture for what is considered the internet today. And he drilled it into me at a very young age. He was like, Rob, this internet thing, if you learn it, if you learn how to manage this, if you learn how to work in this, you're going to have all the opportunities in the world. And he was right. I've had opportunities I've never could have dreamed of. And I have learned so much because I jumped in head first. And with the AI stuff, I know it's scary, but I cannot tell you how many hours a week AI is probably saving me right now. And I'm only saying that to say, I don't want to go, this isn't a podcast on AI. Maybe we'll do a future podcast on AI and poker. Could be fun. But I'm only saying that to say, whatever you think your limitations are, they aren't. You can do so much more. So let's separate poker professional, full-time poker player. Let's think of it as a 4 square box, right? You can be a part-time poker professional. You can be a part-time recreational player. You can be a full-time poker professional. You can be a full-time recreational player. Okay? And here's why. Because now this whole economic engine concept changes everything. Because our economic engine simply is covering our baseline. Now, if you're in the full-time realm, that means covering your bills, right? So if your goal is to go full-time, you need some sort of economic engine. Could be poker, doesn't have to be poker, that you know will consistently and for a very long time into the future cover your nut, your monthly needs, your monthly expenses. That you've got that in place and that is your fallback. And it's not going away. This is so critically important. And this goes back to the data thing, right? I love it when someone comes to me like, well, you know, I've made money the last 3 months in poker. I'm thinking about going pro. How much money have you made? I had some big cash sessions. How much money have you made? They can't even tell me how much money they've made. Not that 3 months is a sample size, but like, you have to know these things. Because part of playing poker successfully is having a place where our mind is clear and we can make the best decisions possible. How the hell can you do that if you're thinking, well, you know, if I win this pot, I'm good for a couple weeks, but if I lose this pot, I can't pay my mortgage. That's not, nobody is going to play good poker in this spot, and nobody is in a good decision-making place if they're putting themselves in those kind of situations. So in a full-time realm, our baseline is covering all of our bills. Okay? And that's consistently for a very long time. So understand, let's say your dream is to play full-time cash. And you're like, well, you know, I'm making $70 an hour in my local cash room and it's good money. Cool. How likely is your local cash room to be open for the next 5 years? Are you expecting those games to change? If your local card room closed tomorrow, are there other card rooms you could go to and make a similar hourly, right? And this is why the full-time thing is such a hard question to answer. It's not about it's not about how good you are necessarily, or even like how much you've won. It's about having that financial security. And that's why a lot of times, and you'll see this with a lot of poker players who do go pro and do have success, they'll go into the full-time realm. They'll make good money playing poker. But despite that, like, I've seen people go pro. Sorry, now I'm doing it. I've seen people go full-time, have $100,000 in earnings, like profit for a year, and then still try to go get supplemental income. Because the lifestyle of trying to make $100,000 a year is too stressful. It's too much pressure. It's too uncomfortable. So your economic engine, if you want to go full-time, doesn't have to be poker. It could be investing, Bitcoin, or other ventures. Please don't torch all your money on meme coins. It could be a part-time job. It could be a retirement fund that you poured into for a long time. You could like make poker a part of your retirement plan. However you need to do it, get that in place. But for most of you who don't have aspirations of going full time, the more important takeaway for Economic Engine is in the part-time realm. And in the part-time realm, that Economic Engine is just finding anything that can fund your poker risks. Okay? Now, what do I mean by a poker risk? A poker risk is an area we want to go into where we don't have the data. And this is going to happen constantly, whether you're a professional or recreational. You're going to have opportunities come up where you don't have the data, right? You're going to have, like we talked about, new card rooms are going to open up. New venues are going to open up. New tournament formats are going to come out. And we're not going to avoid those things. If a new version of bounty tournaments came out tomorrow, I'd be encouraging all of you to try them out, because you might find an edge before somebody else and make a lot of money in a short amount of time because you figure something out that the rest of the population doesn't. Those opportunities are incredibly valuable. But the way you get to take advantage of those opportunities, the way you get to game select in a world of risk, is by getting this Economic Engine in place. You know, the question of shot taking comes up, right? People are like, well, I want to shot take and play a 1K, but I don't know if I should do it. And the thing that people always want to tell me when they try to decide about shot taking is they'll be like, well, here's my bankroll. And I'm usually like, I don't care about how big your bankroll is. And they're like, well, why don't you care about how big my bankroll is? Like, if I'm going to play a 1K and my bankroll is 6K, it's an important question. It's a relevant question. How big your bankroll is has nothing to do with a shot take. How quickly you can replenish that bankroll has everything to do with a shot take. If you have a $2,000 bankroll and you want to take half of it and play a 1K tournament, that sounds asinine to all of you probably in chat right now. But if that 2K bankroll gets replenished every 2 weeks by your job, because you take, you get 3K in like fun money each paycheck, and you put 2K into your bankroll, then playing a 1K tournament is perfectly fine. Because your ability to replenish it, that Economic Engine of that job and that ability to put money back into the bankroll is super consistent. At the same time, somebody with a 10K bankroll who comes to me and says, Rob, my bankroll is 10K. And if it busts that 10K, I'm homeless. And they're like, should I play a 1K? Hell no. Hell no. You don't have an Economic Engine. You don't have any way to consistently replenish your bankroll, your income, your revenue. You shouldn't even play a $500 tournament. So this idea of an Economic Engine, it can come from poker. It could be like, hey, you know what? I can beat sit and goes consistently. Awesome. Build your roll with sit and go money. And then out of the surplus of that, go take your shots. Go experiment in other games. Go get data of potential other places that may be better for you for game selection. Because here's the payoff right here. All this rambling comes to this. The better your Economic Engine is, the more you get to game select. Because the more of an Economic Engine you have, the more risks you can take getting data in this whole world we call poker. The more data you have, the better decisions you can make. The goal of this game should never be to be the best player in the world, unless you're a miserable human being who wants to spend the rest of your life looking at GTO charts for 18 hours a day. The goal of this game should be to find the softest, most enjoyable places to play and win a hell of a lot. I don't mean money necessarily. Some of you would have more fun winning $3 tournaments than you would making a 5% ROI in $100 tournaments. Some of you love the trophy. You love the screenshot on Twitter, right? But This world is like a video game. And level 1 of the video game is picking your base. It's finding that spot in this open world game where you're going to plant your flag and go, this is home base. And your ability to expand out from home base into farther and farther areas of the game, into deeper and deeper levels, revolves around how strong that base is. And that base is your economic engine. That base is your ability to find some sort of revenue in or out of poker. All your base are belong to us. I love that. For those of you who don't know, that's one of the oldest memes. And it comes from there was an original Nintendo game. I don't remember the name of the title, but it was a Japanese game that got ported to the United States. And originally, a company in the US was supposed to do the translation. And for whatever reason, I can't remember if it was budget cuts or whatever, but they got fired or something. So the Japanese company did the translations, and all the translations were horrific. And so there was a scene where there was supposed to be like, we're taking your base, and the Japanese translated it, all your base are belong to us. And it became this like 40-year meme. Anyways, I hope this is all making sense. If I were you today in 2025, after listening to this, I would set aside a little time. If you're crazy and weird like me, draw yourself a hot bath and just sit in there and think about this. And then all of your friends will make fun of you when you start your next podcast for being a weird bath person. I don't care. I have a huge garden tub, and turning the jets on in that thing and just tuning the world out, all of the bullshit that's on social media, and having my wife is home. I will see you in just a minute.
Okay. Road's got shitty.
Oh, nice. Hell yeah. Distraction. Like tuning all that world out and just being able to like zone in and focus on what I'm thinking about. Oh my God, game changer. But I would set aside some time to think about everything you're doing in poker, to look at all the things you've played, and ask yourself if there's an economic engine. Do you have something generating bankroll for you in poker? Do you have something generating bankroll out of poker? And if the answer is no, then that's the only thing you need to work on right now. You don't need to work on check raising or triple barreling or, small blind 3-betting ranges. You need to figure that out first. Find that economic engine. Lock it down. Right? And some of you, all you need to do is find that economic engine and lean into it. Because again, it drives me nuts when people are like, I wish I had more bankroll. And then there's this game that they know they can beat, but because it's not fun, they don't want to grind it. And so they keep going and playing all these games that they can't really beat, and their bankroll's just like this, and then they're complaining about it, just like we talked about at the beginning. They're complaining about the situation, but they're not doing anything to change it. You don't like where your bankroll is? Suck it up for a month and go play the games you know you can beat and grind out a bankroll. Nobody said it was going to be easy. But you lock down that economic engine, and then once you've locked it down, go explore. Get outside your comfort zone. Try different locations, try different poker tours, try different formats, try different times of day, try different structure types, try all of the different types of things that are out there and start to collect data. Because the real sexiness in this game is not when you find an economic engine, but when you find 2 economic engines. And then you find a 3rd economic engine. And then you find a 4th economic engine. And that's not how you just beat poker. That's how you beat life. The reason I'm involved in so many projects right now is because I'm getting poles in the water. I texted my wife this morning and I said, right now, with everything I've learned, everything I've done, right now, I could retire from everything I'm doing, play poker, do daily fantasy sports, and this one small side business I'm working on, work less than 40 hours a week and make $70,000 a year. Right now, which sounds like the dream. And it would kind of make me stupid not to do it, right? But I'm not going to do that because there's 3 or 4 more poles that I have the opportunity to put in the water where if I get those things done, I could be in a place where I'm working less than 40 hours a week and I'm making enough money that my wife could retire. And I will fight like hell until that day comes. My goal is less than 5 years. I think it's doable. Maybe I get there sooner. But all I'm doing is I found an economic engine in poker. And then I went out into daily fantasy sports and I found an economic engine. And then I went into content and marketing and I'm working on an economic engine. And I'm jumping into all of these other things and I'm finding these places to stake my flags. And as I get those things down and those things generate revenue, it gives me the opportunity to expand and explore other things. And that allows me to grow. It's like a portfolio. Your poker career is a portfolio. And these stupid investors that are out there, they just spray everything out there in their portfolio and hope to get lucky. It's not how you do it. Right? You find the things that are secure and you build out from that. So I want you guys to be encouraged. I know we went long today. I knew we were going to. I want you to be motivated. I want you to look yourselves in the mirror and say, maybe my poker dreams are more attainable than I thought. Maybe my poker dreams look different now. Right? Some of you are probably excited because you're like, I can be a poker pro and not quit my job. Hell yeah, you can. Why can't you? Like, who the hell decides that you have to be in poker full time to have a poker career, be a poker professional? That's the stupidest shit I ever heard of. Why? Because you can't play 450 live tournaments a year? Who the hell wants to do that anyway? It's a miserable experience, trust me. Why? Because you won't reach 10 million on your Hendon Mob? Who cares? It's your poker career. It's not anybody else's. Don't let anybody else tell you what you can do or can't do on that realm. Your poker career could be you trying to win one ring in the next 40 years. And you win that ring and you accomplish the greatest thing you ever, to you, what was the greatest thing in poker, and you retire knowing you did the thing that you always wanted to do in your lifetime. That is a poker career. And it's a better poker career than some of the people who have 15 rings, who are miserable as hell, by the way, because they're chasing some mystical goal of like respect in this industry they're never going to get to. Questions, comments? I'm telling you, Wednesday mornings and Wednesday nights are when you're going to get the real shit in this industry. You're going to get the blunt, honest, real look at what this poker industry is, not the crap that gets put out on social media that's not real. Nobody has any questions. All right. Tonight, 7:30 Eastern, watch ChaseTheDream.com. Check it out. Everyday people like you, chasing their poker dreams, looking for their economic engines, practicing game selection. I really, truly hope, and I hope this doesn't sound egotistical, but I really, truly hope the Chase the Dream project changes what a hero looks like in poker. I don't want your poker heroes to be Phil Hellmuth and Daniel Negreanu and Phil Ivey. Because honestly, fuck those guys. They don't give two shits about you and they don't give two shits about poker. They have lined their pockets for 30 years and they've only ever done what's benefited themselves. They were lucky to get into the game at a time when it was incredibly weak and companies were throwing out tons of money and they got rich off of it. They don't care if you succeed. They don't want to inspire you. I want your poker heroes to be everyday real people in this game that are just a few steps ahead of you in your journey, and they're blazing the trail for you. They are showing you that the dream you want is possible. Those are what poker heroes are. And they're not anybody special. I'm not anybody special. But my mission here is simply to show all of you that your dreams are not only possible, they're obtainable. if you're willing to work hard, if you're willing to get out of your comfort zone, if you're willing to push yourself. Yes, these notes are actually right now linked in the description of this video. The notes from last week are linked in last week's description of the video. If you have any questions about any of that after the fact, feel free to reach out to me, shoot me a DM. I know sometimes people don't want to put their questions in chat. I really, truly hope to see all of you tonight. We'll be back next week with another topic. We are going to have some more guests on this show in the coming weeks and months. I have no idea how long this is going to go. We'll see. We've done 5 pizza places. There's a lot more pizza in this town, so a lot more to come. Hope to see you guys all tonight, 7:30 Eastern. That's it for me, y'all. I'm out.